A recent video by Battle Nonsense on Battlefield's future got me thinking a little more deeply about some of the ongoing discussions around the gunplay and skill expression. He raised several strong points that I largely agree with. However, there was one specific argument that made me stop and think a little more about the proposed solution and what would actually lead to the outcome being suggested. And that's what I want to focus on today. One particular point from that video, why I disagree with the approach being suggested, and how I think the same underlying problem could be solved more effectively. If you haven't seen his video yet, I do recommend going and giving it a watch. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. Now, on to the particular point that I want to talk about today, which is the magazine pull system he discussed. In short, this system gives you a fixed number of magazines per life. If you fire a single round and reload, that partially used magazine is retained, and the game loads a magazine with more remaining rounds instead. This differs from the current round-based system that we have in Battlefield, where as long as you have enough reserve ammunition, every reload effectively gives you a full magazine. Now, Battle Nonsense argues that switching to a mag pull system would discourage full auto spraying, encouraging tap and burst firing, pushing players towards headshots, and making ammo management and team play more important. In his view, this would raise both skill floor and skill ceiling by increasing decision making and skill expression. And this is where we end up diverging, and I have my disagreement. I agree with the underlying goal. Battlefield absolutely does need deeper gun skill, better management in terms of recoil, intentional firing, and stronger incentives for headshots. The problem is I don't believe that this system proposed actually solves those issues in practice. I think it actually ends up making them worse. We've already seen a paralleled version of this idea with Battlefield 5 and its attrition system. Low starting ammunition that wasn't really meaningfully changing players' behaviors. People still sprayed, they just ran out of ammo faster. What it did do though was artificially limit skilled players who are winning fights and staying alive longer, forcing them into constant ammo shortages rather than rewarding their mechanical skill and positioning. So my point being, this doesn't actually prevent players from mag dumping and killing you quickly. Much like the Battlefield 5 attrition system, it doesn't meaningfully change time to kill or the demand for better gun skill overall. On top of that, I believe that a mag pull system pushes Battlefield further towards a tactical, slower paced experience. That's not inherently bad, but it is a direction that I don't believe Battlefield has historically taken. Battlefield's always lived in a space in between arcade and tactical, and leaning too heavily into the latter, I believe, risks alienating a lot of the core audience that has existed for the Battlefield franchise in the past 10 years. I think it also decreases the potential room for growth, especially in the casual community. Now, you're probably asking, Ram, what is your solution then? Well, I'm glad you asked. I think there's a much more simple and even effective solution, one that Battlefield already has the tools for. This game includes two systems that directly influence firing behavior, recoil and bloom. In previous Battlefield titles, these systems were utilized together to clearly define engagement ranges. Full auto fire was viable up close, but players were forced to tap or burst fire at medium to long range due to the bloom and recoil behavior. On top of that, adjusting damage models, such as increasing headshot multipliers and reducing limb damage, would naturally reward precision without artificially limiting ammo. The problem with this though is that in order to properly implement it, it would require a fundamental shift in the game's philosophy. That would also mean reworking damage models, recoil behavior, and weapon balance from the ground up. Now this is where corners could be cut, but at this point I would truly much rather see a cohesive, well thought out system than a half-assed solution that Battlefield has historically given us. Anyway, I think that the goal shouldn't be to restrict players into playing better, it should be to reward them for doing so. And historically, Battlefield has done that best through gunplay mechanics, not inventory management. I do appreciate creators like Battle Nonsense sharing their perspective overall. Even if I disagree with a specific point, I think these conversations are important. They help push discussion forward within the Battlefield community, and ideally, hopefully, it'll lead to better gameplay decisions over time. I didn't go into full detail here on exactly how I'd rework the gunplay, but that's something I plan on covering in a future video. In the meantime, I'm curious as to how you see it. What kinds of changes do you think actually encourage skillful play in Battlefield? And where do you think the line should be drawn? Let me know down in the comments below. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you on the next one. RAMTEID out.